We took a vote, and that's it. Okay. So item number 7, does discussion and direction regarding capital improvement planning efforts, including recommendation to hold a capital improvement program, CIP, workshop. And I think it looks like we get the Public Works Director again for the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this item, there's been a lot of interest in understanding our capital needs, and with good reason. So this item is really to initiate the discussion about this item and then seek council direction on what the priorities are really for the city. And then from my perspective, one way to achieve that is to really have a workshop in where we identify what the goals and priorities are for the city. I think at the end of this sort of discussion, I like to provide a little bit of what are the benefits of initiating this kind of effort, including knowing a complete list of assets of the city. You know, what does the city owns and supposed to maintain versus, you know, what we're aware of right now, because we're very reactive. We act to the problems as they come up, that we really do probably could do better with our planning efforts. So the background really is, you know, the city has done quite a bit of work in identifying a lot of the needs. You know, we did the sewer master plan. We're doing the stormwater master plan, which is going to be completed at the beginning of next year. We've basically done with the tree inventory, so now we know exactly how many trees we own and need to maintain. There's been already reports about the condition of this facility and our parking lot. And then we all of those reports continue to strengthen what we know about the city. There are gaps, you know, for example, we don't know the extent of our trail networks. We have lots of beautiful trails in the city that at one point they were maintained, and they're not really, we do very minimum maintenance on those. We have a lot of staircases. I think many of you probably are familiar with how we connect between streets and those beautiful areas. So I'm enjoying those quite a bit. So again, there's a lot of benefits in knowing what we own, and then identified where the needs are and how we can plan to maintain and preserve those assets. Some of the things that I think are important to include in our CIP are really major investments in our city infrastructure, including our fleet assets, our IT assets, furniture equipment that sometimes you need to replace. I think all of us know some of those have served us well. So that's kind of the discussion that I wanted to initiate. What are the benefits of a complete inventory? So, you know, it helps us really planning and understanding what our needs are. We're going through this. We already are in a financial situation that is not the best. This will improve our ability to really spend our limited resources better and allocate them where they need to be spent. And we do a pretty decent plan in our pavement preservation program, for example. We know that's one thing that we do fairly well, and our PCI shows it. We're actually in the middle of initiating that again. We do it every few years, and we're in the process of completing that as well. So that also is going to update our payment program for the next few years. So that helps us plan and assign where we spend our money. Other benefits of really knowing where all of our assets are is, you know, when we apply for grants, you know, our city manager just mentioned that, knowing what we own and what we need to maintain and what we have, that also helps us support grant applications, things like that. And then, of course, you know, helps us comply with regulatory requirements like stormwater management, Everybody's aware of the Machado Lake settlement and all of those things. That contributes to that as well. And, for some of those people that think that I'm okay with chemicals, the Machado Lake is a perfect example of the use of pesticides in our, environment. It is big in my mind all the time. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring up to the table and seek council direction in. Do we want to have a workshop? Probably the beginning of next year, because that's when we'll have most of the reports complete.
I was going to say, were you proposing that that you would have all of these assessments and you'd have an inventory of the paths and the stairways, and you'd have all of this before the workshop, or is the workshop to kind of go through the existing list of projects? I was reading two different things in your staff report.
I think for the workshop, we'll have most of the studies that we already have planned, but we can identify priorities. For example, do we want to expand into trails, stairwells, other areas of the city that are important assets and how the city was planned, and maybe other discussions like pedestrian mobility, bike paths, all of those things, right? Do we want to put efforts into those kinds of things?
I think trying to have a workshop before you're able to get a complete exhaustive inventory would be a waste of our time. I think that we need to have everything laid out independently so that we can understand not only what the asset is, but what the potential condition of that asset is. In other words, the age, and is it deteriorated? You and I had a conversation just recently about the pathways along PV Drive North and West, and the fact that those pathways are disintegrating and the irrigation is broken and it's not been maintained, and they're not even on the list of CIP. And those are the kinds of things that I believe we've got a lot more of, as our conversations have indicated. So I would encourage that we try to find a way to get our arms around all these additional items, and it may be outside of your staff capabilities in a short period of time, but the sooner we can get our arms around what that list looks like, the better this community is going to be.
Good point.
So I think I agree, and I agree with you that there's only one public works person that can do this, and we have
That's you.
Our partners that support us. So we need to dedicate a little bit of resources to do that extra work. There is a couple of things that are important that I will prioritize for me. Will be like an ADA transition plan for ADA issues throughout the city assets that we own, like a full inventory of all of our ADA ramps on city-owned infrastructure and public-owned infrastructure, and it needs to, whether we need to improve or maintain. And then the other thing is the path network and the stairs, really part of the paths network, a full inventory of that. I think we can create a little project to do a full inventory of that, and that will get us at least.
So do you have like a map of where all those stairs are, but you just need to go and visit them and figure out the condition of the stairs?
I don't think we have them mapped. We have a lot of the trails, and talking to the staff, some of the staff are familiar because we actually have repaired some of those. Some of those have handrails, and we have repaired some of those, but there's not a central point of where we have an inventory of all of those.
I think one of the advantages we have is we have a public works director that likes to jog throughout all the trails.
He's always running all over the place.
Exploring the community,
I know.
and he's got a laundry list of things that need to be documented.
Well, what comes to mind as helping with that is those park rangers. Does that fall under that falls under PD, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, they're out on the trails all the time. I mean, I don't know that they're trained to assess the condition of a stairway, but maybe they could be trained to assess the
Or at least
condition of a
identify where they
stairway.
are.
At least figure out where they are.
They
Yeah.
can figure out where they are and take pictures.
Yeah, that seems like that's a resource for you, Oscar.
They probably map their walks or things like that, so maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Craig?
So you mentioned a partial inventory list, I think. You're one person. Is this a combination of activity that you would perform along with, let's say, LSL for the financial analysis or a finance director? And what other resources would you need? And if we did have to go out to get a third party to assist in that, what might that look like? And how quickly could we assess the cost of that and the timing?
It will require, because ideally we build all of these assets into our GIS system. We have a decent GIS system, so it will require a little bit of time of collecting the information and then build them into our GIS. I will have to come up with an estimate for that.
That would be internal, or would you need external, like a vendor or another consultant?
I will say external, or, if there is an ability for us to leverage volunteers or, internships or those kinds of things, I welcome those ideas. I've actually used volunteers in other places to do similar things. But again,
Is that effective?
it's, somewhat effective. It still requires a lot of management support because you have to, have good support for tracking all that. But that's better than no help.
I'd rather have
I like that.
I'd rather have that completed before we have the workshop, so we know.
Yeah.
So you're agreeing with David that I kind of agree with David too, although I hate for it to drag on till the end of time.
No, I'd like to ask Oscar if he could, maybe, I don't know what the time frame is, ideally sooner rather than later, but come back to us with a mapping or a proposal as to what would be required if you were to use park rangers, or if you were to use volunteers, or use a third party. What would it take to help get call it a 90% inventory of the city assets that we could begin to put into your listing, knowing you've got the sewers, storm drains, and the streets and curb and gutters? That's all in process.
Anyway, yeah.
But it's all these ancillary additional items, and not to mention maybe even some of the bluff issues that seem to be eroding on the peninsula.
Yes, I forgot to mention street signs and intersections and those kinds of things that we maintain.
I want to ask a clarifying.
Overcommit.
Yeah, I want to ask a clarifying question. So, is the goal here more to work off of the current CIP and just make sure we sort of have the scope there correct, or is the goal more to do an inventory of all city assets with an eye toward which of those would need to be added to a future revision of the CIP? Is it more the second than the first, or?
I think it's both.
It's both, because
Okay.
to do the CIP properly, to properly plan for what your needs are 5-10 years down the road, you need to know what you need to
What your
maintain.
assets are,
That's
right?
Part of it's cash flow. Because we've got to understand what the assets are, what the condition in the age, and when they're going to need loving care,
Right.
and how many dollars are going to be needed in what year, and build that throughout all the assets so that we have a cash flow that our treasurer will be able to honor the checks when we ask for
Right.
the invoice to be paid.
Do we have any money allocated for that kind of a program for this year? Or-
So, like we do for certain programs, right? We do we did the sewer, we did the storm, and we're doing the pavement management program. We haven't done like an ADA transition. There's an ADA transition or an ADA study that is a little bit dated. I don't remember what the date was. We just pulled it up. Monica showed it to me.
But all the trails haven't been done, and all these staircases and other things you're identifying.
If I may,
We couldn't find any.
if I may.
Go ahead, and then I might have one.
Let me take you back a little bit in time. This whole concept and why we're having this was back in our budget discussions. We presented a very, very watered-down, meek CIP based on what we heard from the council, and really, remember we were having these, like me saying we have to do this year, and we went with what the have to do. You know, I think we're at the point now where we're getting some momentum. We're getting good staffing in place. We're getting staff that's been here a while. You know, it's funny to watch Oscar discover a new thing, and he's like what I found out about today. And so I think what we're asking for is, I completely agree with all of the comments that we need this study and capture all of that. You know, kind of what Councilmember Lazaro and McGowan were saying. Is it both? Is it not? You know, we got this to you now. Let's look at timing. If we don't do anything about this to January, by February, and it sounds like January is a good time, but if we don't do it in January, by February, we're talking budget, and we're now back where we started trying to guess. So here would be my recommendation to the council. I would suggest that we've got a little bit of research we've done on sort of a group that can help us. It'd be great for the Parkland Rangers. I'm not going to commit to getting this done with volunteers because I think you know where that ends up. So why don't we do this? Why don't we spend a little bit of time on the staff side, and let's see what we think it'll truly cost to get some 90% inventory of everything we have. And maybe this group can also take a look at all of the things that we've collected in the last couple of years. We have a study on City Hall. We have a study on the Malaga water. We have a study on our sewers. We have a stormwater study coming. We have put all of that together and then use that to tip off a workshop in November.
I'm going to take the public speaker, because I would say too, it's probably more than one workshop. So
I think it's multiple workshops.
If we could break it into pieces to keep it moving, right? You know, David, like, because I know you don't want to have them say, okay, well, 5 months from now I can give you all this information. I mean, that would be terrible. So
No, I want to be
but
able
if
to
we
stay.
could chop off.
But the other key is that we not end up in a workshop again where we have 70% of the information and we're struggling with the other 30, so we can't provide uniform.
No, and let's
Prioritization until you get a.
No, and I appreciate that. This was something that we were going to bring back to you. So you know, if there's a significant cost of this group, we'll bring it back to the council. It's not been budgeted, whatever it is. But I know Oscar and I have talked about this and have some ideas. But that would be my suggestion. I don't want to wait on this. I don't want to wait past January. Even if we get to 70%, we're not going to have the answers when we get into budget. That would
Okay.
be my
All right, hold that thought. I have one speaker, Cynthia Butler.
Hi, Sarah Butler. You'll know me.
The microphone a little, or stand more. There we go.
There?
Thank you. Welcome.
As you know, I've been working on storm drains and the Malaga Cove water intrusion project. And I would just ask that that come to the head of priorities, because through the FOIA requests, we learned that the city knew in late 2019, early 2020, that that critical drain behind the plaza had collapsed. And it was never, the property owners weren't notified of that. It was never placed on the city council agenda for them to vote for any work to be done on that. So we've had flooding that even affects City Hall for the last 6 years. And we can't move forward without getting an engineering report. We are all cognizant of the difficulties of the finances of the city. But Geocentric and Mr. Tom Schmidt said that there is significant funding and probably we could fund the entire project, but we need to get that engineering report done. So I hope you'll put it on the agenda within the next few meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public speakers?
Just a quick comment for the council's benefit.
Okay, bringing it back.
Just,
So,
Madam Mayor,
I'm sorry?
just a quick comment for the council's benefit so we have it here and that you all understand. I am about to be an owner of the business in the plaza that's going live to the public. So on a going forward basis, I intend to recuse myself on any and all related issues around this water issue and and the Malaga Cove Plaza and anything related, so that it's clear.
Okay, thank you for saying so. Okay, oh, sorry. Is that for this item? Yes. Yep, please. Ms. Hanson. What is this, number 7?
I just want to focus on a couple of suggestions that I think could make things a little bit easier. And I appreciated that the chief of police had talked about that his officers, or that our officers, could take photographs. I'm certain that the fire department, or LA County Fire, would have the trail and stairs marked on that, on their maps. That's a viable resource. It's right there. I hope that we can use just simple, practical things like that. You know, just take inventories. I really wish that our city council, you do so much, but we do need to outreach this incredible community we have. How many engineers do we have? How many contractors do we have? You know, how many environmentalists do we have? Teachers, we have so much. There's a lot we could do as groups that could get excited if the council could be truly open to that. And I hope that we can move our city in that direction where we're doing the collaboration, because we don't have the big funds, but we have an incredible community. And I'm not hearing any concern for the wildlife. We have incredible wildlife, and I'll be sharing with you what's working with nature and our environment just right here in this little square. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Good idea.
One comment I'll just make on this project. I think that I'm torn between doing it right and doing it fast. And what I mean by that is, we have a lot of capital items both on our list and you know, that we've talked about, where the current data, as Mr. Kemp said, it's sort of 70% there, right? And the real way to do this, and you know, I think City Hall in some respects is a good example of that, where we know there's seismic issues, we know there's HVAC issues, we know there's other issues, but we don't, you know, the latest report we have is some number of years old. It wasn't truly comprehensive. You know, we have a 70% answer. And I think that's true of a number of different systems and assets throughout the city. And so, you know, on the one hand, we need information relatively quickly to keep this conversation moving forward, which I really do think is important. On the other hand, the really the right way to do this is to fund, you know, full-scale studies of the systems. That's part of why I asked the question, is this more just an asset list, or is it really like a deep look at the CIP? Because if it's just an asset list, I mean, that I think we really can accomplish with staff and volunteers and things like that. But to get that last 30% is tough in a year where we have a deficit, and we're probably going to have a deficit next year. And I don't have all the answers on that. I mean, I just, you know, maybe we pick a few projects that are the highest priority, or.
Yeah, if I can,
Let me respond to that, Derek.
Yeah.
Well, Carrie, do you want to go first?
yeah, I was just going to say, this is exactly the discussion that Oscar and I dreamed up. I'm going to be honest.
Wow.
You know, we don't want to work in a vacuum. We don't want to go down roads without you. I appreciate the council. I think, you know, besides whatever Councilmember McGowan says, we've gotten a lot of good information and direction from the council. You know, I think one of the challenges we have is, and I don't think you appreciate it, we just start going down a road and you're like, wait, where'd they go? So that's, anyways, I just want to say that.
What was that?
No idea. I'm just.
Yeah, I was looking at you. You're just like this. It's like, we're a little tired. Anyways, this is what we dreamed up, and I know this is what Oscar and I needed to take some steps forward. So,
Okay.
Let me just
Please.
respond to that.
Yeah.
The inventory is mandatory, but that's the first of 3 or 4 steps that need to happen as we go forward. We have to understand what all the assets are, whether we get them from the financial records or whether physical inspection or whatever. Then we need to understand what their condition is, what their age is, what maintenance needs to be done and so forth, and what is the expectation of when that asset is either going to have to be repaired or replaced. And that becomes a cash flow, what they call a reserve study, which will map out all of these assets over a period of 10 or 20 years and say if we've got to be putting, $100 away every month for squad cars to replace the squad cars when they expire or
Right.
get too many miles. And that's a financial planning tool. And that's part of what the city is so negligent on right now with our reserve funds. We don't have any left, and we need to get this organized approach done so that we can project the cash flow needs. And the best example in the world, and he unfortunately left the room, was David Stockey at the golf club. They have done a phenomenal job of doing that with all of their assets. And they have got these lapsing schedules that go out called the reserve study, which is exactly where Oscar and I have had some conversations with Carrie and others that we need to eventually evolve to. But the first step, before we crawl, before we walk, is getting an inventory.
Okay, makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys have the direction that you need? I think that was just this agenda item was to give direction, correct?
yes, we're good.
You got your dream came true. It's sort of a scary state of your dreams, my friend.
This is what I dream about at night when I'm not sleeping.
There you go. There you go. Okay.